Hi, you're on Reddit Confessions, and what I'm about to share isn't some dramatic movie scene. It's what actually happened the night I realized my marriage wasn't built on love, but on performance. It began, not with an argument or a message I wasn't supposed to see, but with me standing in a room full of people who made me feel like a mistake. The room was too bright, too loud. The kind of party where everyone talks just a little louder than necessary to sound more important than they are. I was holding a tiny plastic plate with 3 shriveled shrimp and a napkin that said "Quarter 4 Conquerors" in gold lettering. I don't even work there. I was invited because my wife, my dazzling, confident office superstar wife, insisted it was important for me to show up. She said it like I was a homework assignment she forgot to turn in last quarter. And like always, I agreed, because I'm the agreeable type, the sure honey guy. The man who doesn't rock boats because he's too busy patching the holes beneath them. So I stood there in the corner like a hired caterer who lost his tray, while Meryl floated across the room like she owned the building. She was laughing louder than usual, touching people's arms a little too often, flashing that charismatic grin that used to be mine. Or maybe I just imagined that it ever was. Then it happened. A tall guy, too tall honestly, pointed at me and asked, loud enough for the music to lower itself in shame, "Is that your intern or your therapist?" Everyone laughed. Everyone. Meryl didn't correct him. She laughed too. I felt my ears go hot, my neck locked. I forced a smile because I am programmed that way, but something cracked deep inside me, not in a dramatic soap opera kind of way, more like a quiet splinter that wedges itself under your skin and festers slowly. What none of them knew is that I already knew about the messages. Not from that guy, he was just noise, but from the other one. The one with a saved contact name that didn't match the sender's email. So I stood there, let them laugh, and in that moment, I decided something. I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't embarrass her. I would do something far worse. I would let them keep underestimating me, and then I'd show them exactly who I really was. By the time we got home that night, Meryl was in high spirits, twirling out of her heels, humming some song from the party like the world had applauded her performance. She asked me, casually, if I had fun. I said yes. Of course I did. It's easier than explaining what it feels like to be invisible while standing next to someone who used to look at you like you mattered. She didn't notice that I didn't ask her anything in return. She didn't notice much about me lately. After she went to bed, still smelling like wine and expensive perfume, I sat on the couch in the dark with my laptop on my knees. I wasn't planning to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But when someone shows you who they are, laughter and all, you start to notice the little things you ignored before. Her laptop was open earlier. I remembered that. She'd been checking her work calendar, muttering about some strategy meeting with Logan. She always mentioned Logan. Too much. The name never used to mean anything, but that night, it burned itself into my thoughts. So I typed it into her calendar search, and there it was. A 3-day client off-site last month in a boutique hotel downtown. Funny, she told me she was flying to Denver. The entry had no location tag, no flight details, just team building. The kind of vague label you use when you're either terrible at organizing your time or too good at hiding what you're really doing. I stared at that entry for almost 10 minutes before I opened her email. She had a bad habit of not logging out, probably because she never thought I'd look. I found a folder called Work Trips, and inside, a trail of receipts. Wine for 2. Room service for 2. 1 room, king-sized bed. But here's what really made me feel like the dumbest man alive. She forwarded one of the receipts to her personal email with the subject line, "Memory Lane." Not business, not strategy. Memory lane. I didn't even feel angry at first, just hollow, like someone had scooped the last of my self-worth out with a plastic spoon. But here's where it gets strange. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I opened a new tab, booked myself a room at the same hotel for the following weekend. Same floor, same view. Not to follow her, not yet, but to think. To breathe in the silence she'd filled with lies, and to plan the one thing she'd never expect from me. A move that wouldn't make me look desperate, but deliberate. Because the thing about being ignored for so long is that people forget how dangerous silence can be. I didn't pack much, just a weekend bag with enough clothes to make it look casual. I told Meryl I was heading to a local education conference, something about rethinking curriculum standards. She barely blinked. She kissed me on the cheek, told me to have fun nerding out, and went right back to texting, probably someone more important. I didn't even ask who. By Friday night, I was in the same hotel she'd stayed in just weeks earlier, same floor, same side. The air in the hallway even smelled like her perfume, floral, cold, overconfident. I didn't know what exactly I was looking for or hoping to feel. Closure, clarity, the truth. Or maybe I just wanted to sit in the same room where I was erased and figure out what parts of me still existed. I took the elevator alone. No distractions, no music. Just the hum of steel and the pounding in my chest. My room was at the far end of the corridor, facing the city skyline, just like hers had been. When I stepped inside, I was hit by a wave of artificial calm. Soft lights, crisp sheets, quiet hum of the HVAC. It looked peaceful, but it felt staged, like a lie with good lighting. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my laptop, and pulled up the email again. The receipt from the minibar. 2 mini champagnes, 1 chocolate cake, 1 love note scribbled on hotel stationery, photographed and sent to her inbox. To more nights like this, it said, signed with the letter L, Logan. She never used emojis with me, never left me notes. We barely said goodnight anymore. Just as I was about to close the laptop, I heard a noise. Not from my room, from next door. Laughter, familiar, hers. I froze. There was no way, no possible way, she'd be here again. Was there? I crept toward the shared wall and placed my ear against it. A low male voice said something muffled, and then, clear as glass, her laugh again. The one she used when she was performing, the high-pitched, over-enunciated version she used to impress. And then her voice, "Don't worry, he's at some school thing. He'll never know." My chest tightened like a vice. My hands curled into fists without thinking. I wanted to knock. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burst into that room like a character in a bad soap opera and demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I sat down, picked up the hotel phone, dialed the front desk, and in the calmest voice I could muster, I said, "Hi. I'm next door to room 714. There's been a noise complaint, some loud, inappropriate conversation. Can someone check on them?" I hung up before they could ask for more details. I didn't want to ruin the moment. I wanted to watch it collapse. Because if I had to learn the truth, so would she, and not on her terms. I stayed perfectly still after the call. The silence in my room was deafening, pierced only by the distant elevator bell and the occasional whisper from the next room. I kept checking the hallway through the peephole like some low-budget detective, palms sweaty, knees bouncing. 5 minutes passed. 10. I thought maybe they wouldn't send anyone at all. Maybe I imagined the whole thing, and it was just another couple, another laugh, another ghost playing tricks on me. But then, there it was. A soft knock at the door next to mine. Firm professional. "Hotel security," someone announced calmly. "We've had a report of a disturbance." The voices inside paused. I could almost feel the panic bleed through the wall, footsteps, rushed whispering, the shuffle of clothes being pulled on. Then finally, the door creaked open. I stepped quietly toward my own door and cracked it, just enough to see. And there she was. Meryl, in a black blouse she never wore at home, her lipstick smudged slightly, her hair pulled up in a way I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. She was flushed. Not from embarrassment, she hadn't spotted me yet, but from whatever she'd been doing seconds before the knock. Behind her, a man appeared, buttoning the cuffs on a designer shirt. Not Logan, someone else entirely. The security guy apologized for the inconvenience, said someone must have misheard. Meryl smiled politely, as if she hadn't just been caught half-naked in a hotel room with a stranger. She had that polished, fake calm expression she used with waiters and Uber drivers. As they closed the door, her hand lingered on the man's shoulder. That was the moment I stopped being sad. It didn't even feel like heartbreak. It felt like slipping underwater and realizing how quiet the world could be when you stopped pretending everything was okay. I'd spent so long explaining away her coldness, her late nights, her last-minute business trips. I'd rewritten the narrative so many times in my head just to protect her image, and now it was unraveling faster than I could process. But I still didn't confront her. Instead, I took a picture, just one, through the small slit in my door. A time-stamped image of her standing in that hallway with a man who wasn't me. I didn't plan to use it right away. I wasn't ready for the fallout, but I needed proof for myself. Something real I could hold on to. Something that said, "You're not crazy, Greg. You're just married to someone who stopped loving you a long time ago." Later that night, I lay in the same bed she had once shared with him, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow. I just kept whispering the same question over and over. Why wasn't I enough? And somewhere in the middle of that question, I started thinking about the office party, about Silas, the smug smirk, the way Meryl let him belittle me without flinching, about how she surrounded herself with people who mocked the man she came home to. That's when the next part of my plan started to take shape. I wasn't going to expose her, not yet. I was going to make her watch me change, and I was going to start in the last place she'd expect, her office. I never thought I'd step foot in her office building. Meryl always made it sound like this untouchable world, a place too sleek, too brilliant, too fast-paced for someone like me. "You'd get bored," she used to say with a polite smile. "It's all meetings and buzzwords, not your thing." And I believed her. I bought into that lie like I bought into all the others. But the thing is, when you stop trying to protect someone's version of the truth, you realize how much they've been banking on your silence. So I showed up on a Thursday morning, no warning, no invitation. Just me in a fitted navy jacket, a clean shave, and a confidence I stitched together from scraps of every insult I'd ever swallowed. I checked in at the front desk, like I belonged there, told the receptionist I was dropping off a thank you package for the VP of Strategy. She smiled and waved me through with a visitor badge. That's all it took. I walked past glass offices and espresso machines. The place looked more like a luxury spa than a workplace. People with AirPods and blazers, moving like they were all late for something important. I found her department easily, marketing and partnerships. A sign with sleek lettering hung over the open floor workspace. And there she was, at the far end, laughing again. That laugh, the one that no longer belonged to me. She hadn't seen me yet, so I watched her. Not like a stalker, but like a stranger trying to make sense of a woman I once thought I knew. She stood close to a man, not the hotel guy, not Logan, but Silas, the one from the party. He leaned against her desk, confident, relaxed, like he lived there, and she was beaming. I didn't hear the words, but her expression told the story. She didn't just tolerate him, she admired him. And then she saw me. Her face dropped an inch, like she'd seen a ghost in business casual. "Greg," she said, loud enough for heads to turn. I smiled. "Hey, hun. Thought I'd drop off those tickets for the fundraiser. Figured I'd surprise you." She blinked. "I thought you were working today." "I am." Conference calls later. Took the morning off. Silas smirked from behind her, sipping something that definitely wasn't office coffee. "Nice blazer," he said, tone thick with sarcasm. "Didn't recognize you without the shrimp plate." I smiled back. "Didn't recognize you without someone else's wife?" His face twitched, just a little. Meryl stepped in fast, fake laughing, trying to brush it off. "Greg, let's talk outside." But I wasn't ready to go just yet. I looked around at her coworkers, people she'd clearly let believe I was irrelevant, dull, disposable, and I said, loudly and clearly, "You've all probably heard a lot about me. The trivia guy, the teacher, the quiet one. But here's the thing. Quiet doesn't mean clueless." Meryl grabbed my arm. "Greg, what are you doing?" I leaned closer, just letting them know I'm done playing invisible. Then I handed her the envelope I brought. Not fundraiser tickets, a photo, the one from the hotel hallway, time-stamped, labeled, clear. She turned pale, and I walked out. Not because I wanted to make a scene, but because, for once, I was the one in control of it. The office door clicked shut behind me, but I didn't stop walking until I reached the elevator. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it echoed down the hallway. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I could already picture Meryl standing there, still holding the envelope like it was a live wire, with Silas's smug expression finally cracked. And for once I didn't feel like a joke. I didn't feel like background noise in someone else's story. I felt terrifyingly real. Back at home, the silence wrapped around me like a blanket soaked in cold water. I sat on the edge of the bed we used to share, the same bed where she once whispered that I was her safe place. Ironic. I opened my laptop, not to escape, but to keep digging. I needed to know how far the rot had spread. I remembered something. Meryl had synced her work and personal calendars to the same cloud account years ago. Said it was easier to keep things streamlined. She probably forgot all about it. She always assumed I didn't care enough about tech to notice. But that morning, I logged into the old account with the same password she'd used for everything since college, her childhood pet's name, and our anniversary. I guess I was still good for something. What I found made my stomach twist. Events labeled Team Sync, vendor meeting, outreach dinner. All of them layered with locations, hotels, not restaurants. And not just one man's name. There were 3 different initials mentioned across months. JLS. I sat frozen as the pieces rearranged themselves in my head. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. It wasn't even just emotional neglect. It was a lifestyle. She wasn't bored with me. She had outgrown me, and she'd been hiding that in plain sight. I opened the most recent entry, labeled Onboarding Strategy, Conference Room B. Attached was a private document, shared only with one email address not linked to her company domain. My eyes scanned the text, expecting spreadsheets or proposals, but instead I found messages. Raw, unsent, drafted but never deleted, like she was writing to someone else, or maybe to herself. Greg will never understand what I need. He still thinks kindness is enough. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating inside this polite little life. If he ever found out about Silas, I don't know what I'd do. But maybe part of me wants him to. I stared at the screen for so long, my eyes burned. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the resentment. The way she spoke about me, as if I was a burden she tolerated, not a partner she loved. It wasn't rage I felt, not even heartbreak anymore. It was grief. Grief for the man I used to be in her eyes. I could have closed the laptop. I could have confronted her again. But instead I clicked download all. Every message, every calendar, every receipt. I stored them in a private folder under a new name, Exit Strategy, because she wasn't the only one who could move in silence. And I wasn't going to be the last to find out who she really was. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't call in, didn't explain. I just sat in the quiet of our house, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock like they were the only 2 things left that hadn't lied to me. Meryl didn't come home that night. Not surprising. I imagined the chaos unfolding after I dropped that photo on her desk. Maybe she told them I was unstable. Maybe she cried in the bathroom and spun some dramatic story about a jealous husband and misunderstandings. She was always good at rewriting reality when it served her. But the thing about being underestimated is that people never see you coming until it's too late. I'd spent years learning how to avoid conflict, how to tiptoe around tension, how to be the husband who kept the peace. But I wasn't that man anymore. Not after what I'd read, not after what I'd seen. So I wrote an email. One I never thought I'd write. It wasn't to Meryl, it was to her boss. I had no intention of destroying her career. I'm not vindictive, but I knew things now. Things about how she was using outreach budgets for private hotel stays, charging wine-soaked dinners to client accounts that never existed, approving expenses with names I'd confirmed weren't even real vendors. I attached the files, clean, time-stamped, factual, no rage, no threats, just data. Then I wrote the second email. This one was personal, not bitter, not emotional, just the truth. I told Meryl I knew. I told her I'd seen the messages, the receipts, the hotel rooms. I told her that I wasn't going to beg or scream or chase anymore. I told her that she would come home to an empty closet, an unsigned divorce packet on the kitchen table, and a silence she'd carved herself. I signed it simply. Greg. I didn't wait for her to read it. I didn't sit there refreshing my inbox or watching the door. I took my things, just the essentials, and left. My clothes, my books, my laptop, and the only photo I cared to keep, the one of us from our first year together, before the lies, before the performances, before I became her accessory. By nightfall, I was in a friend's spare room, staring at the ceiling again, but this time, it didn't feel like drowning. It felt like breathing. The silence wasn't hollow anymore. It was mine. My phone buzzed once around midnight, her name on the screen. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, another buzz. A message. Greg, what did you do? I locked the phone and placed it face down, because the real question was never what I'd done. It was what she thought she could keep doing, and now she finally knew. The man who once stayed quiet had left her the loudest silence of all. The morning after I left, I woke up without an alarm. No half-hearted goodbye kiss, no silence over burnt toast, no pretending everything was fine. Just me. The sky outside was gray, but it felt like sunlight. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I didn't have to guess whether I was enough. I didn't have to earn kindness like it was a favor. I heard from her again later that day. 10 missed calls, then a long, rambling voicemail. She was crying, angry, accusing, defensive. She wanted to talk like adults, wanted to clear up the misunderstanding. But she never once said sorry. Not once. She still didn't get it. She never understood that it wasn't just about cheating. It was about how small she made me feel, how easily I let her. But I wasn't that man anymore. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth. I stayed calm, factual, unshakable. I think that bothered her more than anything, seeing me unbothered, seeing me free. She tried once to meet for coffee, just to talk. I didn't respond. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just need to stay closed. Months passed. I moved to a smaller town, picked up a new teaching job at a quieter school. The kids respected me, even when I wore bad ties and made lame jokes about ancient Rome. I adopted a dog, Walter, a senior beagle with more personality than most executives I'd met at that party. Walter never judged. He just wanted walks, snacks, and the occasional belly rub. Honestly, same, and me. I started writing again. Not just stories like this, but history columns, local essays, even a few blog posts that people actually read. My voice, something I once muted to make space for hers, finally had room to exist. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a doormat anymore. I saw a man who walked through betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, and still chose peace over revenge. Meryl, last I heard, she left the company. Something about compliance issues. Maybe Silas disappeared too. I didn't ask. I didn't need to know. That chapter's closed, and honestly, I hope she figures herself out someday. But that's her story to tell. Mine, I'm finally living it. Thanks for being here and for listening. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt small, erased, or forgotten, know this. Your voice matters. Your peace is worth fighting for. And sometimes, walking away is the loudest, bravest thing you can do. You've been watching Reddit Confessions. Before you go, tell me in the comments. What's one moment from history where someone walked away and changed everything? I'll be reading everyone. Until next time.